If you've watched the channel, you guys know I've softened my stance a bit on Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12. I'm now more open to the idea being a realistic possibility after so many news breakers across college football have actually addressed this now. But there is one major hang-up there. And today, my guest, Jon Wilner from the San Jose Mercury News and the Wilner Hotline, will address exactly what that is that could actually prevent this from happening. Plus, he has a great idea for the Big 12 to make some extra money and try to keep pace with the Big 10 of the SEC, or maybe close the gap just a little bit. If you are a Big 12 fan, make sure you subscribe to my Open for Business newsletter. You can click the link in the description to do so, or go to ofbnews.com in order to subscribe and get Big 12 news straight to your inbox twice a week. I'm hoping the answer to this question is going to be yes, because I loved the piece you put out the other day where you proposed that the Big 12 play games on Thanksgiving Eve, the Sunday of Labor Day weekend, and even Sunday nights, potentially trying to go up against the NFL or work around it as much as you can. Do you have much confidence that the league is considering these types of things? Like how realistic is it that the league might wind up trying to go down that road?
I think that the Sunday thing is probably next level in terms of making it work, getting buy-in from the schools and the networks. I mean, they would need Fox to agree to put a game on up against Sunday Night Football. But in terms of playing on the Sunday of Labor Day, and my suggestion was to play a conference game or two on the Sunday of Labor Day. Why not put one of your marquee events there when there's no competition, and then create a non-conference spot later in the season when that game would get buried anyhow? I think either playing conference games Labor Day weekend on that Sunday or playing the night before Thanksgiving, I think there's a pretty good chance that they're going to end up doing one of those two things in the next few years. I'd bet a nickel that they take one of those two options. I don't want to get too detailed on it, but the Thanksgiving Eve game, I wrote that years ago that the Pac-12 should do that. That is the one piece of absolute premium college football property that has no competition. You get to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock Eastern on that Wednesday. Everybody's out of work. Everybody's ready for football. You put a game on that day, you're going to get big ratings. And the Pac-12 should have done it years ago. Never did. I think the Big 12 may end up doing it. The issue, of course, is it affects multiple weeks of scheduling for the two teams that are involved, because they clearly can't play the previous Saturday and then play on Wednesday night. So you got to kind of bake in 2 or 3 weeks of a disrupted schedule. But it can be done, and I think it is a massive TV audience waiting for you right there on that Wednesday night.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, and I really hope they do it. Private equity has been discussed a lot here. Private equity, private capital, however you want to actually, determine what it is. I'll ask the same kind of question there. How likely is it, do you think, that gets to the finish line for the league?
Boy, I would say somewhere less than 50-50, maybe 40%. Right? I think the presidents are both going to seriously consider it, but also have serious reservations. The piece of all, the big picture piece here for the presidents is declining enrollment, which is coming because of the recession in 2008, 2009. A lot fewer kids born. So there's going to be a significant drop in the number of college-bound high school seniors coming up here at the second half of the decade. And so if the supply is less, then you got to market better, right? And nothing markets a university better than its football program. So investing in football is the best marketing tool for these universities as they are facing a decrease in the amount of students. And I'm not talking about athletes, right? I'm talking about just general student body enrollment is going to drop. And if the competition for those students, especially out-of-state students that pay full tuition, it's going to be fierce competition, even more fierce than it is now. And investing in football is a good way to market your university. So I think that is part of the calculation that the presidents are using as they try to decide whether to get into private equity or private capital. But ultimately, I'd say if I had to guess, I'd say no, but I think it's close. I think they will give it some serious thought.
Well, final thing here and kind of related, but it could be used, or at least it has been insinuated that it could be used to try and lure a Florida State or Clemson to the Big 12 if the Big 10 or SEC are really going to be out on them. And that's what a lot of the reporting has indicated lately, which I can understand people saying, well, of course they're going to say that now and don't want to get legally entangled and all of that. But I have been as skeptical as anybody about Florida State or Clemson having any chance of winding up in the Big 12. But it's like, enough people have at least put it out there as a possibility. Ross Dellinger, Brett McMurphy, Josh Pate the other day was really pretty strongly thinking that is a possibility. Are you buying this at all, that there is a path to getting Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12?
I'm pretty skeptical. I wouldn't say never. I'm pretty skeptical on a couple of fronts. One of them is that the other Big 12 schools would probably have to agree to unequal revenue sharing, right? I mean, Florida State and Clemson aren't coming in at $31.7 million.
Yeah.
Right. We know that. And how would that go over with the other schools? I'm a little bit skeptical about that. I also think that a lot of it is the SEC and the Big Ten they're not interested now because those schools aren't available. But once they're available, if they're available, everything will change. The attitude of the university presidents will change. The attitude of the network partners will change. It will all change if those schools are actually on the market, right? And we know North Carolina is going to be pursued hotly. And I view everything else from the perspective of Fox, right? I mean, Fox has been one of the two movers and shakers of the last couple of years, right? Why wouldn't Fox want to get into Florida with either Florida State or Miami, right? And they don't have one of the prime properties in Florida, one of the prime football properties. So it makes some sense to me that they would. That's a lot of money for the Big Ten network if you can charge in-market rates for subscribers. So we'll see. I am sure that the Big 12 is pursuing that possibility. Yormark has got 18 different scenarios probably mapped out, right? Which is the smart thing to do. And I'm sure Clemson and Florida State appear on half of them, if not more. But when push, I just think it's easy to say that you're committed to being single for your entire life until you've come across somebody who takes your breath away, right?
Yeah.
And then everything changes. Everything changes. And you can't even conceive of how you would feel until you have that experience. And I think that's part of what's going on here is everybody needs to just think about the fact that if Clemson and Florida State break that grant of rights, the entire world of college football changes, and how people view scenarios now may be different than how they've used those scenarios under entirely different universe.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Jon, before I let you go, where can everybody find your stuff? I know not only are you writing, but you've got a podcast, and obviously you're on Twitter. Just let everybody know the best places to follow you.
Yeah, well, we did a massive rebranding, and we went from Pac-12 Hotline to Wilner Hotline, which is Wilner Hotline is my Twitter handle. It was pretty simple. So WilnerHotline.com is the best place. Wilner Hotline on Twitter. Podcast, Canzano and Wilner. And we are talking about a lot of these kind of issues. We just had Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gould on. She talked about some issues with Washington State and Oregon State that have some resonance with ACC and Big 12 potentially. So, everything, my whole view of this, Jon, is everything affects everybody these days. The conferences are so interconnected at so many levels that you could find a way to make any topic relevant for almost any fan base because so much of it has a ripple effect one way or the other. And that's increasing, right? With private equity and with the house settlement, the schools are all getting more and more entangled competitively and financially.